One of the classics is, are you hunting for UFOs? Because they see a dish. But it's usually just amazement that somebody could be out there with this fluffy reflector doing something strange in the woods with it. So the first question is, what are you doing? What I'm doing, my hobby is going out into the woods and recording birds, animals, anything that's natural that makes a noise. Now this is the difference between a television programme and a radio programme. So there's something special about radio programmes. There's something special about sound. And people buy thousands of CDs or hundreds of CDs every year, don't they? They build up a collection. It's because the sound is something special to them. In the same way, recording bird song, recording animal vocalisations is special to me. Different people record birdsong for different reasons. So some do it for research, some do it for the aesthetic pleasure of getting a really crisp, clean recording. At the moment, you'll probably hear behind us, there's traffic roar. And so the challenge we have now is to get away from that road, deep into the woodland, so that the distance basically dilutes the sound out. My enemies, cars, planes, trains, motorbikes. That's just me. I mean, some people don't mind. Some people just enjoy the sounds they record as they are. But for me, I like to, in a sense, falsify the environment we're in and just get away from all that human noise and just try and recreate a pure, natural soundscape. Hi. Hello. Well, they're bad news if they hang around, but generally speaking, people have got their own thing to do, so they've got as much right to be here as me. I just get on and do what I want to do, they get on and do what they want to do, and usually we're all very happy together. You can hear a chiffchaft calling over there in the tall trees. There's a swift overhead, and there was a great spotted woodpecker just making a few contact calls behind us now. There are wood pigeons calling over there. So there are lots of things going on. I'm often astounded by the people who can listen to a piece of classical music and tell me exactly what it is. Because although I like classical music, I know very few pieces, and I certainly couldn't name that tune in 10, let alone one. And I think it's just what's your addiction, what you get used to. And being out in the bird recording, you obviously learn the different calls, the different tones, the different timbre of each species, and it just glues itself into your brain eventually. There's a chiffchaft calling high in the trees over here, and we're a little bit too far away to record him as an individual species from further back. So as there's a bit of a track going through the woods anyway, I thought I'd come off the track and just try and get a little bit closer to him. The first thing I want to do is pinpoint exactly where he is. One of the other reasons why I do sound recording and not bird watching is because my eyes aren't as brilliant as they could be, and so I don't even have a pair of binoculars. I just rely just on the sound. So we'll find out where he is, if he's still there. I can hear him doing some contact calls, but he's still quite a way away. He's right in the top of the the fir tree over there. Yeah, he's somewhere there though. How did I get into this? Well, as a kid, I was very heavily into natural history, and my uncle was into natural history and astronomy, and into wildlife sound recording. And I used to see him going off with a tape recorder and this parabolic reflector. And I thought, well, that seems to be good fun. So I pestered, and eventually I went with him, and he made me a small parabolic reflector, and we bought a cassette recorder, and I used to go with him. And then slowly over time, my interest grew until I became obsessed with it. So here I am. And there's the chiffchaff. think the art is patience. I mean, there's a classic situation that seems to follow me around when I'm doing this sort of recording, that you'll get in position, you'll have the bird lined up exactly at the point of the reflector, so you've got the maximum amplification, and the bird will then sing for another 2 or 3 song phrases and then go, or go quiet. And that's exactly what happened here. So there must be something that I'm doing, which means I'm not as good as I could be, otherwise I'd have crept up and he wouldn't have been upset by me being here. I think wildlife sound recordists are very much more akin to a naturalist who wants to be part of the environment and see and listen and feel almost what's going on. Whereas I always feel that the twitchers are those who are desperate, hence the name. They're twitching all over the place to go and find the next bird, dashing around just to tick things off on a list. And that is fine. You know, people like to collect lists, people collect lists of all sorts of things. But for me, I'd rather concentrate on getting good recordings of even common species rather than getting lots of poor recordings of every species under the sun. But again, everybody's different, and I know recordists whose hobby is very much focused on recording every species they can, whether that's good or bad in terms of quality. I don't really have any particular species that I'm desperate to record, but there's a willow warbler there. They're just such nice sounds to collect. In the UK, it's quite hard to get good recordings of species, what I call good recordings, because you have all sorts of things against you. We've got wind noise in the trees, there's road noise over there. So getting something where you've got one individual songster performing for you near the end of your microphone is quite rare. So it's hard to get good recordings of even common birds. I'm fortunate that over the last decade I've been able to go to other places in Europe, Spain, Hungary, Poland, most recently Macedonia, to do some recording there. And I think the great thing there is that the environment is much quieter in many cases. You don't have so many cars, many aircraft going over. And again, there are those species that you don't encounter here at home. I suppose, though, that for me, if there's a species I would like to record, maybe more than any other, it wouldn't be a bird at all. It would be a wolf, or even foxes in the UK. I think certainly wolves have got a very evocative voice. So all we've got is a tape recorder, or what used to be called a tape recorder, and a microphone. But a little tiny wren that weighs 10 grams or something of that order, you can't expect it to scream as loud as a human. So you need to give it a bit of help. So what we have here is a parabolic reflector, and the idea of the parabolic reflector is that any sound waves that are incident on it are reflected to a focal point, and this upper microphone is at the focal point of the reflector. And this, of course, does have its geeky elements, because there are solid-state recorders, there are preamplifiers, there are microphones. It's all kit and geekiness, and it's all linked up with computers, because that's where you do all your processing of the sound to get rid of hiss and rumble and all those other artifacts that you don't want to hear. Is it geeky? Probably a bit, but it is still all about sound, and everybody loves sound. Everybody loves music, and this is just a different form of music. It's a natural music. It's just become so fixed in me that I just enjoy recording. I don't think it's the technology. I think it's the birds to some extent, but I think it's more of a sanitised hunter-gathering. It's a thing I do to collect. So people collect matchboxes, or they collect train numbers or airplane numbers, or they tick off how many Formula One races they've been to. For me, it's, as I say, a sanitised hunter-gathering. So I'm going out there, I'm hunting my birds, I'm getting close enough to them to get a good recording, and then I'm leaving them alone and not causing them any harm. So it's a bit like going out and taking nothing but photographs and leaving nothing but footprints. It's the same sort of thing. I'd like to leave something behind, and I don't see the point too much of just doing this for me. So I think when I've done all this work and I've gone back and I've processed all these recordings through my computer, and I've got some nice sequences of song, for example, all of those recordings then are just shipped off to the British Library Wildlife section, and all the recordings go into their library. And that means they're there for anybody to use for research, if they want to use them in films. And so my recordings have been used in research, they've been used in filmmaking, and they're used by the British Library itself to produce CDs of wildlife sounds that they then sell to promote the library, promote the Wildlife Sound Recording Society, and also to promote birdsong in the general public.